romance fraud is one of the fastest growing types of fraud that's happening.
Some of these fraudsters will spend up to a year researching.
Please welcome Paul C Brunson. He's gone on to build one of the most successful matchmaking businesses with his wife.
What are the things we can do to protect ourselves when we're online?
One of the most important is,
do you feel soulmates are fate or are they created?
this is part of, I think, a myth that we fall in love at first sight.
Love is harder to find and keep than at any other point in human history. Why is that?
Many people don't even want a long-term partner. 80% of married couples have lower satisfaction rates than at any point of recorded history of marriage. We've reached a place where we want everything from one person. Sexual stimulation, friendship, she's my business partner, my co-parent. Is it possible to get everything from one person?
Isn't it true that a full narcissist will never change?
Once diagnosed, that's not going to change. Now, we all have narcissistic traits. Most highly successful entrepreneurs will test high on narcissism scales.
If someone's unsure, what are some of the distinguishing differences?
So,
We are going to live longer, happier, more fulfilling life if we're in a loving partnership.
yes.
But what you're saying, it's become harder to have it. So what would you say is just some of the solutions, some of the tips to help people?
So,
I don't even know how I feel about that. Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Success School podcast. I just want to say thank you so much for being here and taking time to listen to the show today. And I also just want to make sure you are aware that my whole mission with this podcast is to be able to give people access to conversations that are going to enlighten, they're going to inspire, and they're going to give you the information needed to genuinely start to live a happier, a healthier, and a more fulfilling life. But here's the thing, I am just one man. So that's really, really hard to get a lot of people to be positively impacted when I'm doing this alone. So I'm just going to ask a little favor. And I know you're probably sick of hearing this. You probably hear it on every podcast you listen to. But please, if you genuinely do think this podcast is valuable and can help people, if you could just take a second to hit that subscribe button and maybe go one further, tell other people about it, share it on your Insta stories, anything you can do to help bring more awareness to the show would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for being here, and I really hope you enjoy this episode.
do you or have you dabbled in intermittent fasting?
Just this week, I did 43 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think? Well, it's just a week, so it's hard to.
For me, well, I did it last week as well.
Okay. Oh.
Because I was doing, I researched it, and the first thing that comes up as research is it's what Rishi Sunak does every Sunday to Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, I'll try it as a weekly thing then. When he's running the country,
Yeah.
you would hope he knows what he's talking about, but that's a different conversation. For me, I just that what I was saying there about the energy slumps, I get that, and when I fast, I don't.
Yep.
I just feel, and almost at a point where I feel like cognitively a little bit ahead of everyone. Like,
Yes.
come on, guys.
Yes.
Like, I
Yes.
want to get to meetings extra early, and
Yes.
that's what I found. Have you done it?
Yeah. So I'm month 3.
Okay.
Of restrictive eating,
Yeah.
which is almost the same thing.
Yeah.
And I feel that same way.
Really?
I feel energy is on fire. I feel cognitively,
Yeah.
I'm next level. Anxiety is lower. I'm able to sleep through the night. I was never able to sleep through the night. Never. before fasting.
Really?
Yeah.
And that in itself's massive. If you're getting broken sleep, that's going to massively affect how you feel.
Oh yeah, it's horrible, and then especially in the industry that I'm in, where the hours are crazy.
Ridiculous.
Like tomorrow, I'm filming from 10 a.m. until probably 8 p.m.
Yeah, and you say probably because who knows?
Who knows?
when
Who
it's
knows?
done.
Yeah, who knows? And so you think sleep is even more critical.
Yeah.
But yeah, intermittent fasting or restrictive eating, because I know there's a debate between the two.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a game
What's
changer.
the sort of time frame that you're doing it?
So I typically do a 16-8.
Yeah.
However, like on a day like today, I haven't broken my fast. I normally break it at 12.
Yeah.
I'll probably break it at 2,
Yeah.
2:30.
Yeah.
So I try my best through the week to look at the schedule,
Yeah.
and I break the fast when I need to. But if it needs to be one meal a day, I just take one meal a day. It's cool.
you're done.
And then on the weekend, I'm a little bit looser with it. But yeah, it's been tremendous.
Wow, it's so interesting because I've just been talking a lot about it. So in terms of general fasting, I do the same as you. And I don't go too strict on it with the 16-8, but it's roughly that. Okay. I'll usually break my fast around 12, 1 o'clock, something like that. But then I've just introduced this idea of doing like a full, the idea was 24 to 36 hours. But what I found is once you get past like the 24, like the 36 is really easy to get to. So it's just naturally become 40 last week. It was 43 this week. Yes. I'm not saying I'm going to definitely do it every single week, but it's just a bit of an experiment to see how am I feeling, that kind of thing. And all I can say is good things.
Yeah, I think that's what life is. You know what I mean? Life should be incremental experiments and not taking what we're told as gospel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which people do, right?
All the time.
They're just like, that's what my teacher told me at school, or that's what the news told me.
Yeah. It's like, you know, my son, and then we repeat it. Like, so my sons are always like, most important meal of the day is breakfast. I was like, that's what the breakfast industry told me.
Sure,
Like, they literally, the cereal industry is who made that up.
Yeah.
You know, so, incremental experiments, very important.
Well, let's start with, first and foremost, Paul, thank you so much for being here today. I am a massive fan of your work, and I'm going to start right now by saying your latest book, Find Love, undoubtedly the best relationships book I have read.
Man.
And it's not because it's the only one I've read.
How many have you read? Yeah.
I genuinely have. As a single guy, this is a topic, you know, that I'm really interested in learning more about. And I think the reason it's so good is it's succinct, it's to the point. It doesn't like do extra chapters or extra words for the sake of it. It's relatable, it's easy to digest, and I feel like you've covered the whole spectrum.
Wow.
And so for me, what I came away from that book feeling is that I've got a real simple guide. You know, like wherever we're at, if we feel like, oh, I'm struggling a little bit now, there's something in there that will bring me back and keep me on the right path in terms of how to think or what to be aware of. I love the fact that you've got the questionnaire at the end.
Yes.
That is like, if you get the book just for that, it is worth it.
Yes.
Because I think that's what we need as well. Not just to learn, we need practical, actionable stuff in a book like this.
Oh, man.
And that's what you give us.
It's so, I think as an author, right, that's all you can ask for is for someone to take what you have spent an enormous amount of time and research and energy on and say, this is going to help my life become better.
Yeah.
You know, that's all I can ask for. I love that. I'm very appreciative, you know, of not just you reading the book, but also you being a guy reading a book on relationships, which is something that we need to change. Because, you know, it's even like you look at the book, when I sat down with the publisher and the designer, like, I love the book, but it's not really designed for the fellas.
Right.
You know what I mean?
We got the pink colors, we got love hearts.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, guys rock pink. I have a pink jacket, you know what I mean? But it's not necessarily designed with the fellas. So I think the fact that you are doing what you do needs to be commended, and it needs to be, you know, we need to appreciate that.
Well, it's so important. We were just talking then about, in general, you know, we all need to utilize critical thinking. I think a lot of us just take what we're told as gospel, and actually when it comes to relationships, for most of us, what are we actually taught at school about relationships, and what are we really taught about dating? And kind of that's the premise of this podcast, really, is taking the key principles of what is going to make us happy, healthy, and fulfilled in life, and making sure we delve into that. And I feel like in many ways, traditional education, it doesn't give us that. It doesn't really give us the understanding of, for example, finances and, you know, the life skills that we need. And I think, you know, on reflection, most of us get our idea of relationships from either fairy stories where they live happily ever after. What does that mean?
Sure.
And also parents. And it's like, you know, if you're growing up in a household where mum and dad aren't together or they're arguing a lot, then we can, if we're not careful, take on some of those traits and beliefs about how relationships are supposed to be. So I think, you know, whoever you are, I think we all have to look at what is our view of relationships? Where's that come from? And I guess ultimately the question is it serving me, right? Like, is it working for me?
Absolutely. And then also, you know, you have society as a whole, that as a result of the shifts in society and the demands in society, that has determined how and why we quote unquote love or we enter relationships. So you're right. You know, it's like life really is about self-awareness and environmental awareness, where environment is literally, it could be physically where we are right now, it could be where you live, it could be where you work, but it is about that awareness. And, you know, Marcus Garvey, my man from Jamaica, said it the best. It's like when you become a master of self, you become a master of your environment. And that's ultimately, you know, what I hear you saying is become a master of self. Be critical. Don't take everything, you know, as gospel. Research it. Do your own diligence. Become a master of self, and then you become a master of your environment.
Already, we've just dropped the gold. We're all good.
There you go.
There you go. You
That's
can
it.
leave now.
That's
That's
all
all
right.
we need. Please don't stay. We first met on a show, Steph's Packed Lunch.
Yes.
Which unfortunately is no longer here. It should be here.
Yeah.
So wrong.
Can we shout out Steph, Channel 4, the whole, because really I think what was happening with Steph's Packed Lunch has not happened and perhaps will never happen again, where you had a show that was not a UK show, not filmed in London.
Yeah.
Like right now, where are we?
Yeah, we're in London. Your fault, by the way. I didn't in the north.
Everything like is in, but that was taken out, and then as a result, what you got is you got the environment of the north. You know what I mean? And then Steph is incredible.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
So we was on that show, and you was answering a few different questions around relationships and challenges in relationships, and my kind of topic that we spoke about is an experience that I had with online fraud, and you said something along the lines of romance fraud is one of the fastest growing types of fraud that's happening.
Yes.
And obviously with dating apps, a lot of people are on there and trusting in the person they're speaking to genuinely be that person. My experience was I was supposedly dating someone for 4 months, and it turned out she was not who I thought she was. For anyone listening now that hears that is a very real thing, what are the things we can do to protect ourselves when we're online in the dating world to not be, you know, a victim of that?
Yes. And not only is it one of the fastest forms of fraud, romance fraud, it is fastly growing as men are the victims. And I think that's very important, because what men are doing is they're underreporting. They're not reporting the victimization that's happening.
Yeah, because they might be embarrassed or that kind of thing. Because I get it. It was, you're like, oh my God, how have I been so stupid? How did I not see the signs? Is how you feel.
Right, absolutely. So there's many things that could be done, right? One of the most important is don't leave the app. Right? A lot of people, what ends up happening, and what people who are trying to commit fraud is, actually, let me take a step back. The first thing that's done is you have to understand that a lot of these fraudsters are not just individuals, but they're entities, right? And they have, you know, workshops set up like where we are right now. They have offices set up where they are conducting due diligence and research on you. Some of these fraudsters will spend up to a year researching you. So you have to be very aware of what information you're putting out.
Yeah.
And there's certain people that they like to pinpoint. For example, they love a single parent. They love a single parent who posts about their children. They love a single parent posting about children. The children has some type of illness, right? They're constantly looking, someone who showcases money, you know, status symbols. So there's lots of things that they're looking for. So one is they do research. So be aware of the information that you are projecting. That's very important. That's one. Secondly is on the app, they try to move you off of the app as quickly as possible.
Got it. Yeah.
Why is that? Because the app have safety features built in. You know, full disclosure, what you already know this is, you know, I'm head of global research at Tinder. And one of the things that we see often is that the fraudster, what they try to do is they try to move you off to text or WhatsApp or another platform where they can do what? Where they can freely ask you for money, freely send you photos.
It's not going to get flagged up.
It's not going to get flagged up because on the app, what happens on the dating apps? It gets flagged.
Right. Okay.
Right. It's prevented. You can't even send photos.
No.
You know.
Yeah.
And so, stay on the app. That's number 2. Number 3 is try to meet the individual as quickly as possible. This is something that I find to be fascinating about online dating. The average amount of time in the UK between swipe right or matching with someone to actually meeting them in person is about now 2 weeks. In the US, it's 3 days.
Wow.
Now you think, okay, 2 weeks, that's the average. So that means that there are hundreds of thousands of people who go months without meeting. And there's a whole group of people who never meet. They're satisfied with just the dialogue, the back and forth. And so you have to think, if you meet the person, you're able to discern fairly quickly. If you're not, and then actually, let me give you a bonus. A bonus is that the fraudsters, they start with a very small ask.
Yeah.
It's very small. They're not going to say, can I have a 10,000 pound loan?
It was for me, I think she said, oh God, I've just spilt some milk that I was buying or something and I can't afford for some milk. Have you got some money there where I can just get some milk? I'll pay you back next week, that kind of thing.
That is it.
And it was for her baby.
Yes, yes. It's always for my child who's sick, medicine, whatever. Can I have a couple pounds? Why do they do that? Because they want to see whether or not you will do it.
Yeah. Otherwise, they're wasting the time. If I'm not going to give her a couple of quid, I'm not giving her the 100, whatever.
Exactly. So that's how it goes. It's incredibly sad because you see people being bilked out of literally tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pounds, life savings gone.
Oh, man. And also, I think it's sad that even if it doesn't get to that, just from a point of going on dating apps, for a lot of people can be scary. It can take a lot of courage to put yourself out there. You might have been through a difficult breakup and now you're getting yourself out there again. You've got this bond. You feel like, oh, actually, I quite like this person. And then before you know it, it's not who you thought it was.
No.
Then what does that do to your confidence? For me, I was like, I don't think I want to go on dating apps anymore.
Right. It rocks your ability to use the app in the future, but then it just rocks you. It hits your self-esteem.
General trust.
Yeah. Anxiety goes up. Yeah, absolutely.
So I was lucky enough to come to your event when you did the book launch.
Yes.
A few weeks ago. It was amazing. It was so good seeing you on stage.
Thank
and
you,
actually just the energy and the atmosphere in that room from such a range of people. It was like we were at a rock concert, right? I love how you had the DJ
how
on
do you
stage.
describe it? How would you describe it?
I would say it was a combination of stuff. You can't just say any one thing. I won't even say a rock concert, actually. That's a lie. It was more like a rave. We had like a proper rave. There were some highs, there were some lows. We laughed.
Yes.
There was moments of truth where you're like, ooh, that cut deep.
Yeah.
We had that.
Yeah.
It was just absolutely amazing. But I think you covered some really shocking and interesting points that you spoke about on stage. So I want to cover a couple of that in today's podcast, because one of the things that you said is that love is harder to find and keep than at any other point in human history.
Yes.
Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, well, I gave several points, and I think there are many, many points. I think there was 4 probably that I gave that night.
Yeah.
But overall, what we have to understand is that this concept of love has changed drastically over the years. And there are many people like Eli Finkel, who I think is one of the phenomenal researcher out of New York. He wrote the All or Nothing Marriage book, will show that love, the concept of love, really just came into vogue in maybe the 1800s in essence, right? So we always would partner for a very pragmatic reason. And what was that? It was really about survivability and thriving. That was the whole intention of partnership.
Yeah, full stop, the end. That's it.
That was it.
Simple.
Yeah. And that's going back hundreds of thousands of years. So you think 1800s, you've got mid-1800s, that's just a blip. It's just yesterday, basically, in the history of the world. Yeah. And what you saw there is you began to see companionship take place. So it wasn't necessarily I'm going to devote all of my everything to you. It was I just simply want to have a companion. I just want to have a friend. When I come home from work, I don't want anyone to argue with, and I need someone to raise my child. Right? It was companionship. The companionship then led itself into love. So you could even argue that we are just now really figuring out what is this thing called love? Like, what is it? Now, ultimately, I think one of the top reasons why it's so hard is because what we've done now is we've reached a place where we want everything from one person.
Sure.
And this is very important to spend a beat thinking about. Esther Perel talks about this often, where if you were to go back just 50 years, we lived primarily in environments where you may get the highest level of intellectual stimulation from a close friend. you most likely had an affair partner, a mistress, who you got sexual stimulation from. You had business partners and friends who you received other types of benefits from, right? Yeah. Friendship, etc. So you didn't derive everything from one person. But we've reached a point now where most of us who are looking for a committed relationship, we want everything from one person. That's a lot to ask. Is it possible to get everything from one person? Absolutely. I think I am one of the people who I will say I'm testament to. My wife is like my everything, and to what she says is I'm her everything. So I get all those things that you mentioned, or that I just mentioned: sexual stimulation, friendship. She's my business partner, my co-parent, like all of these things, my argue partner, like all these things come from this one person.
But you're also a bit of an exception to the rule because you study, live and breathe relationships, right?
Yeah.
Most people, they have a different career path. It's not all about relationships. So I think as well, I guess the question is that realistic for the everyday person?
Yeah, and I will say the realism, like we'd have to debate what that actually is.
Okay.
I go back to saying it's just freaking hard. And it's harder than ever. It's harder than ever before, especially where we're in a zone where many people, and this is the growing population, don't even want a long-term partner. You know, under the age of 30, right now, I saw some data yesterday. Actually, this is Tinder data I saw where you have people now hoping for a long-term partner, but not believing that they will have a long-term partner in their life.
That's massive, right? If they don't believe it, that's going to affect how they show up, how they communicate, what they do, everything.
Yes. And so it's harder. It's I mean, that's one out of a whole range of reasons why. Yeah.
What would you say is just some of the solutions? How do we start? Because you also spoke about how the data shows that we are going to live longer, happier, more fulfilling lives, right? If we're in a loving partnership.
Yes.
So the data suggests it's a good thing to have that person, that partnership.
Yes.
But what you're saying, it's become harder to have it. So what would you say is just some of the solutions, some of the tips to help people?
Yeah. So that data, just to point those, that's mostly Dr. Waldinger's research out of Harvard. He wrote the book The Good Life, and he's commissioned lots of studies. But in essence, what he's saying is that when you have someone else in your life, and technically it's another nervous system in your life, what that thing, that person does is it helps you to better manage stress. And it is stress that ultimately is the number one enemy for happiness, living a long time, making lots of money, all those things. So ultimately, when you have someone in your life who you can have the highest level of emotional intimacy with, they help to shield you from all of that stress, and then you get all of the upside from it. So then the question becomes, okay, if that's the case, what do we do? Well, I think there's lots of different arguments. One is, and this is, you could go on this side and say, well, do we even need anyone? I think that right now today is a viable discussion. It's a viable discussion because I think you could argue that, and remember, this is me, married, matchmaker, champion of romance.
Sure.
I think there's also a viable argument to say you could do life alone and do it very well. Very well.
You've nobody else to worry about, you just focus on yourself, that kind of thing, right?
Absolutely. You can also still benefit the world, right? Because a lot of people who are coupled will say, "Oh, well, I have kids, and that's how." But no, you could contribute to the world many ways. You could still have children, by the way, right? Also, you could still get emotional intimacy. You can get that through friendship. You can. You could still get sexual satisfaction. People are running around here acting like they don't masturbate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that we're not living in a day and age with the highest, most sophisticated sex toys, in the world. Yeah. So you could begin to paint the picture where you could say that you don't have to do life with anyone else a matter of fact, you could then argue that most people who have a partner, and this is Eli Finkel's research, 80% of married couples have lower satisfaction rates than at any point of recorded history of marriage. 80% have lower satisfaction. So you can even say, hey, I don't even, like, I'm higher satisfied than these folks over here. So you could go this route and say, you don't need anybody. You really don't. But then you could stretch over here and go onto the, to the married side and say, okay, or the full-time committed partner side, and say, all right, what can I do strategically? And a lot of what is in this book, Find Love, is strategically what can you do? And a lot of that work is on you.
Sure.
That's where a lot of the work is on you.
People don't always like that, though.
No.
It's not the easy route, but it's like anything in life. Often the harder route is the more fulfilling route in most things, right? When it comes to fitness, health, if you neglect your fitness and health, it might be easier in the short term. In the long run, it's going to be harder. Obviously, with all the research and everything you do, is your gut instinct that ultimately, despite that counter argument, that there is no substitute for that true love and that intimate relationship?
That's a really good question. I will say, I would probably have answered that with super supreme confidence, 10 years ago and say, there's no substitute.
Sure.
Right? I would have rocked with that answer. Today, I don't know.
Shit. I don't like that.
I don't know. And the reason why I say I don't know is I want the answer to be no. Like I want it to be no. But I've leaned so deep into the science and into the research to know that, just the word love, for example, like how do you define love?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like
it's so confusing now. There's so many things like that where I'm like, how do we define it now? Because it feels like there's so many counter narratives, different viewpoints. But for me, it's about commitment. It's about shared values, and it's about, there's something about wanting to do stuff just for the sake of the other person because you care deeply about them. Okay. So in your definition of love, which, by the way, you ask 10 people, define love, you're going to get 10 different answers. Yeah.
So you think your answer of love, maybe it's here in terms of the difficulty to achieve. Mm-hmm. But if I go ask someone else, they may say love is, 10 times what you just said.
Yeah.
So therefore, they're placing the difficulty of love or the challenge of love up here, which means it is going to be much harder for you to find. So even that question, I think, is a great answer to your question of like, this is the beauty of long form podcasts like this, is that we can unpack these topics that, unfortunately, and I'm a perpetrator of the problem, is on television, especially it's like you just get a quick blip, like
edited in a certain way, right?
Yeah, but here you can unpack and say, okay, let's really define, like, what is love? Like, now let me just give you my opinion of love.
Yeah.
I think love is about commitment.
Mm-hmm.
I think love is also about friendship. And I think love is also about the highest level of intimacy. Doesn't have to be physical, but emotional intimacy.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think if you have intimacy, you have friendship, and you have commitment, collectively you have love. That's how I define it. But we all define it differently.
I think there's also that thing that people say the phrase "my person," and what they mean, and I believe, is it's that thing of someone you fully trust, that knows you, that understands you, and vice versa. You feel you know them and understand them, and with that level of intimacy and trust, there's that feeling of we're a team.
Right.
Like whatever happens in the world, we've got each other. And I think human beings like being part of the tribe, right? They've got like knowing they've got that trust. And I think rather than it just being the tribe, like I get different things from different people, knowing you've got that one person doesn't mean they give you everything, but they're your person and you're theirs. I personally feel like that's one of the highest levels of satisfaction and fulfillment, is knowing you're not in this world alone. And I feel like as much as we can get different things from different people, there's something in that traditional relationship that you don't quite get the same
Yeah, but that is largely because of your experiences throughout life.
Yeah, right.
That's what you've been, and I'm not saying I disagree.
Yeah.
Because actually, we're on the same page.
Sure.
But to play devil's advocate on it is
Yeah.
that if we grew up in a collectivist society, right? Because remember, a lot of this data too, and I outline this in the book, is not a lot, like 90+% of the data and the different terms and terminology that we hear is based on Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic nations.
Sure.
So it's coming out of the UK, it's coming out of the US, it's coming out of Canada, all the research. Like it's funny, when you hear a statement like 80% of couples are lower satisfied than ever
We're
before.
not taking into account the entire world, right?
No.
Yeah.
And if you track down, it's probably like 200 couples that live in upstate New York, right? So you do have to take the research with a grain of salt. Yeah. But where I'm going is that there are drastic differences between how the West and the East live and how they view relationships. The East is more collectivist based. So they would probably counter to what you're saying. Like you're like the one person. They're like, no, my family is everything. Yeah. You know, that's the most important. Even if you look at the living scenarios. Like I just came back, went to Marrakesh, you know, and I was fascinated by how the riads are set up, where I was like, okay, they all have courtyards, right? They all have courtyards, and there are almost like no windows on the outside. But when you go into the home, there's tons of windows and decks and everything that overlook the courtyard. And the setup is very collectivist. It is, hey, we are a family. It's a lot of us. We all do everything together. This is us. Basically, screw the rest of everybody else. Yeah. This is us. Whereas you come to London, it's like windows on the outside of windows on the outside. Yeah. And so you think about just even how architecture shapes how we show up and how we view relationships. So I hear you, because I grew up in the West, in New York. But you know, my friends who live in Istanbul, my friends who live in, I was going to say northern parts of southern Africa, my friends that live in Ghana, they may disagree.
I don't even know how I feel about that, because it's that thing, it's really challenging your map of the world, right? When you've grown up in a certain way, and we are told, as we said earlier, fairy stories, it's about the prince and the princess, they live happily ever after. So that really shapes what you think brings happiness.
Yes.
And then to challenge all of that and go, that's just a small viewpoint, really. Because I ultimately see it that it feels sad that it seems less people are sticking to marriages. There is more dating shows that encourage, if you don't like that person, just go to someone else, you know. And when I say don't like them, what I'm saying is you've got a connection, but they said something that just was like something of nothing, and you call it a red flag, and it becomes a big deal. And I think for anybody listening right now that does feel similar to me, that, you know what, they do want those traditional values of finding that person, and they do find this whole dating world so tough to navigate. What sort of advice would you give them? Like how can they approach? Because I guess one of the things that I'm reflective of is feeling that people's expectations are really, really high now. And that's both a good and a bad thing, right? That it's good to know what you want and have standards, have high expectations. But then it's like this thing of, if you actually want a loving relationship, maybe there's a level of, you know, compromise and things like that. I'm thinking, like, you see, and from my experience with dating, it's like, the man needs to be ambitious, he needs to be smart, he needs to be hardworking, but not, you know, he needs to be in good shape, but he also needs to be laid back and chilled and available and emotionally intelligent, and he needs to be 6 foot. And, and you go, like, and I heard a statistic, I don't know how accurate this is, something like, again, it's a Western statistic, let's take that into consideration, that 80% of women want a man over 6 foot, but only 15% are.
Yeah. All right. So it's interesting. That is based on a study of a dating app looking at how many women were actually opting or swiping, if you will, on men of certain height, right? And then it keeps getting changed and changed. I will say this though. This is I think inspirational points is that everything that you just said, I don't disagree with it, but it is becoming less important. So
there's a shift.
There's a major shift.
Hallelujah.
Major shift happening.
Yeah.
Led typically by Gen Z. And I wrote a lot about this in Tinder's Future of Dating report last year. Is that Gen Z is really shifting how we are dating. Now, I'm not saying that means that we've definitively changed it, but there are some positives. People could argue there's negatives, but there are some positives. For example, one massive positive is less emphasis on height for a man in a heterosexual relationship, less emphasis on waist to hip ratio in a heterosexual relationship for a woman, right? More emphasis on, do I feel like I could be my authentic self in front of you? These are positive strides, right? This focus around mental health. Like, I want to focus on my mental health. I want my mental health to be a priority in my life. These are positives. The fact that we are reading these books now, we're consuming more content around relationships. It serves to make us better in the relationships. These are all good things, right? So this is something that we need to say, okay, this is good. Most adults, so most people over the age of 18 want to be in a long-term committed relationship. Most do, in the West and in the East, right? So these are all, if that's what you want, this is good. As you get older, all the data shows that you become less externally focused around the looks and around whatever the cars or whatever. You become less. Also, and I wrote about this in the book, and I was blown away by this, is the higher self-esteem you have, the less importance you place on what is considered to be traditionally attractive. And that's important because as we get older, if we are delving into self-development, in theory, what happens is that our self-esteem increases, right? And as your self-esteem increases, you no longer are looking for a partner that the world needs to validate.
Yeah, which is a big thing. I think I've been guilty of that, especially when I was younger.
Yeah.
It's like, how will we look as a couple?
Yes.
And I think that's such a bad way of looking at things.
It's such a bad, I first learned about this when I started dating my wife, like 20 plus years ago. My wife had the highest self-esteem she just had it. She would wear what she wanted.
Yep.
She would do what she wanted. She was never looking for external validation. So we were talking about people who we love, like who we want to be in a relationship with. This is when we were dating. Yeah. She was like, my number one. Now remember, at that time, the number one was like Denzel Washington. It was, it was like the Will Smiths, like in my community, like that's what it was. Yeah. She was like, my number one is Spike Lee. Now, do you know who Spike Lee is?
I don't know.
All right. We should just flash a photo. Spike is cool.
Get that in the edit. You're looking at Spike Lee now.
Spike is cool, but he's the director of Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X.
Okay, bye.
But I don't think a lot of people would say he's the most aesthetically,
the traditional way that you would say is hot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But my wife loved Spike. She was like, that's number one.
And what was her reasons?
Because she loved the intellectualism from Spike Lee. She loved how he's making an impact and changing the world. But where I'm going with this is that she didn't need, because of her high self-esteem, her validation came from within.
Yeah.
She didn't need to have someone who it was all about that. So that's beautiful. So I guess where I'm going with all that is it's like the more we work on self-development, the higher the self-esteem. So these are all positives for us as we get older.
This kind of brings me on to something else you mentioned at the event, which I thought was really interesting because you did a little bit of a quiz with the audience.
Yes.
And I've tested this on people since I was at your event. And
Okay.
the quiz was, you asked us, the audience, what creates the strongest relationships? And you gave
Yes.
us 4 options.
Yes.
You had A, the same level of education, B, the same values, C, strong sexual compatibility, or D, personal satisfaction. Now,
You smiled when you said sexual compatibility. That was a big smile.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
When I've asked this to people, what's the main one that people generally say to you?
By far values.
Same, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like the obvious one.
Yes.
And the lady that I was with, a friend of mine, she was like, "It's values, isn't it? It's values." And I was like, and I was like, no.
Oh, wow. So
And I was in the club that was, I think we stood up and put our arms in the air or whatever it was.
oh, wow. Yeah, yeah.
It's personal satisfaction, right?
Yeah. There was like 5 of you in the
In the whole
entire
room,
yeah,
in a theatre full, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's fascinating that you marked that. Yeah, most people don't. Most people say values. And by the way, all of those options all
Yeah.
contribute to strong satisfaction in a relationship.
Sure.
But the most important is that you walk in with personal satisfaction.
And when you actually then reflect on that, it makes so much sense. Like if you
Yes.
have low self-esteem, if you're not happy, if you don't like your job, if you're not happy with your weight or whatever it is, then how are you going to be truly contributing at the highest level and satisfied at the highest level with your relationship, right?
Yes, and then also, and this is where it goes wild, is then you should also be second guessing your partner. Because if you are suffering from, let's say, the lowest of low well-being, and your partner chooses, has in part selected you
Yeah.
and stays with you, you have to ask yourself why. Why? Does it make sense for someone who has extreme high well-being to then enter a relationship with someone and stay in a relationship with someone with extremely low well-being? No.
Absolutely not, yeah. You speak about in the book about soulmates, and I'd love you to talk a little bit about this idea with soulmates. People think, oh, it's fate and, you know, my person's out there. Do you feel soulmates are fate or are they created?
Yeah, they're created. This is part of, I think, a myth, is that we find our soulmate or that we fall in love at first sight. You know, like these are myths that are perpetuated by what you had, I think, very well what you said before in terms of we romanticize. It is technically called the Disneyfication.
Okay.
That is the technical term, Disneyfication, where we think we fall in love with the prince or the princess, and that's it. Like, and that's
And
not
then happily ever after ... Nobody knows what the ... are. Like
No.
the work, the day-to-day effort and continual presence that you have to put into a relationship for it to thrive, right?
Yes.
That's what it's about. But we just think, oh, and this is something I've been really guilty of in previous relationships, that ultimately has led to them not working, is as a man, I have been a person that's very ambitious, very career orientated, very goal orientated, and I've reflected on that behavioral pattern. And I recognize when I'm pursuing a woman, that's the goal. So she gets a lot of my effort, a lot of my time, a lot of my focus. When I know we're committed and we're in a relationship, I'm kind of like, you know, I love you. I know I'm there. I'm off to get the next goal. What am I doing in my business? What's my next financial goal?
Right.
And I've heard that this is quite a common thing for a lot of guys that are ambitious, and presumably the same for women when it's the other way around as well, in that we neglect that actually, and something you speak about, is the most important life decision is our partner. And I think from my personal experience as well, when my home life isn't good, like when that relationship's breaking down, every other area of my life starts failing.
Everything fails. You know, to connect it to something I wrote about in the book is Dr. Carol Riff has what's called this. Her main thing is called the 6 dimensions of psychological well-being, which I think is perhaps one of the most underrated studies. Like, period. The work that she's done is phenomenal. I talked a lot about her, at the event. But in essence, she says that there's 6 categories of our life that as long as we are on an upward trend, upward momentum, that we have higher well-being. One of those is what? Environmental mastery. So what she's saying is that if you are low in one, your well-being won't be high. So if home life sucks, if job sucks, right, your entire well-being is disproportionately impacted by that. So that shows the importance of focusing on on all these. So no, I'm with you.
What would you say for people in terms of like recognizing, addressing, dealing with past trauma, and if people are maybe in a position where they struggle to trust, they have low self-esteem, things like that, how important is it to deal with that, do you think, before going into another relationship? And is it important, or can we deal with it within the relationship?
Yeah. So in the book, right, the first thing I talk about is, all right, let's put up a mirror to ourselves and let's look at trauma, because this is another hugely underrated part of our life. Yeah. And we have to understand, this is Dr. Gabor Mate, who is really like the OG of trauma in the world. Like, I think, actually, your question was, what do we need to do? You know what? Everyone needs to just Google Dr. Gabor Mate and watch one podcast, watch one lecture, read his book, his several books, and begin to just understand how trauma shows up in our life. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it is because you were physically abused as a child. Yeah. It could be the intergenerational trauma, which is now proven to impact us. So the trauma that your grandmother or your grandfather went through literally shows up in you and your behaviors, how you act or how you react. And so we have to understand that trauma is a part of all of our lives. And so that's where it begins. It begins in identifying it. And I think he's the best in the world. I mean, basically what I've done in the first section of my book is I've studied all the greats around trauma and said, okay, I've distilled their work. Here's what they suggest that we do. But that's the first place to begin.
What about, I mean, you hear it said a lot on Instagram quotes and stuff like, you cannot truly love someone else until you love yourself, and you have to have done the inner work before you even start thinking about a relationship. And then I reflected, like, one of my best friends was in an awful place mentally, emotionally, when he got into a relationship. And as a partnership, they've both grown. They've now got married. They've now got children. And I kind of thought, oh, because we had this conversation. He was like, oh, that's rubbish. You can, as a couple, be the thing that completes each other, and that's not a bad thing. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm with him, right? And I think that this is the issue with social media. This is where social has really destroyed us as a society. Is that what ends up happening is that someone will say that you can't love anyone until you love yourself, and that validates many people who have like just come out of a tumultuous relationship or whatever, and so and so therefore, what do? They like it, they comment on it, they share it, it goes viral, right? And it becomes, okay, oh my God, then it floats into your feed, and you're like, oh my God, 10 million people have liked this.
It must be true.
It must be true, right? What? And so, and then it becomes very hard to go against the grain. But this is why we need to have high self-esteem. This is why we need to be, research. This is why we need to listen to podcasts like this.
Long form.
So, in essence, the reason why your friend is 1,000% correct is because the journey around well-being, the journey around self-love, which, by the way, self-acceptance is a part of well-being, according to Dr. Carol Riff. That journey is never-ending. It's never-ending. And remember, the key, this is the most important part, is it's not like you've reached the destination.
Ever.
It is just, are you in forward momentum to the destination?
On the right path.
That's it.
And I think that's such an important point that we discussed, because what can happen is, because there's never a destination, we never feel ready to date again. So therefore, I'm still not ready to date. And then you just never end up dating again. You go, you're now 93 and I'm still not arrived. I'm not ready to date. So I think it's such a great thing to go, yes, be doing the inner work, the self-work, but don't let that be a reason necessarily to stop you also dating, putting yourself out there, right?
Absolutely. Like, we should always be, and I think, and I keep saying I'll write about this in the book, but this is the book too, is we should always be strengthening our tribe, if you will.
Sure.
Like, we should always be in forward momentum on building relationships. This is also Carol Riff. That's one of the 6 dimensions, is how strong our relationships are. And if you are doing that, then sure, you could have a platonic. Does the platonic move to romantic? Possibly.
Sure.
Right. But you should never close off the opportunity to meet good people. Never.
You speak about the dark tetrad in
Yes.
the book. If somebody's never heard of that, could you just tell us a little bit about what is that?
Sure. So the dark tetrad is a group of very bad people.
These are the villains. These are the baddies.
These are the baddies. And
Yeah.
you know what's interesting is this gets a lot of attention now. A lot of this is Dr. David Buss's work out of Texas. And in essence, it started with the dark triad, and then a fourth was added. So who is included in this? So narcissists are part of the dark, we'll call it tetrad.
Yeah.
Secondly, in no particular order, you have psychopaths, right? You also have, third is you have Machiavellian. So these are the folks who manipulate, and they get a kick out of manipulating. So this was the triad. And then the fourth was added. These are the sadistic people who enjoy you being, another person being in pain. And you can have sexual sadists, etc. So you have sadists, you have Machiavellians, you have psychopaths, and then you have narcissists. This group represents a group of the very bad people, both represented by both men and women. This group, you could talk to lots of researchers. Some of those researchers will say the group is growing, the population is growing. The total population, what I estimated in my book, according to various researchers, is still less than 15%.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the minority of people. However, these are the people who are the most prolific daters. And there's a lot of research on the dark triad in particular around how successful they are at dating. They're the most successful.
Because they possess those traits, those characteristics that are attractive in the sense that they're self-assured, they're confident, they're charismatic, right?
Absolutely. And they'll lie to you. So
They'll tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah. And what do you want to hear? I'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's like, and so because of all of those reasons, they become the most dangerous. But this goes back to something that we've been talking about, and I think that most of this time is your well-being. If you have extraordinarily low well-being, the dark tetrad, they love you.
Yeah.
You're easier to manipulate. You're easier to use. But if you have high well-being, you're almost untouchable.
Sure.
They don't want to spend any time because it's like, oh, you won't do anything. Of course I won't do anything because I'm not entertaining your nonsense. So this is the reason why well-being is so important.
I think also something that I've heard you touch upon that I think is a really important thing to recognize is if you watch reality shows now or scroll through social media, whatever, you will hear, if you're not careful, a lot of people seemingly saying that everybody's a narcissist,
Right.
everybody's love bombing, all these terms, these phrases that people wouldn't have even really known what they were 10, 15 years ago, right? But now, seemingly, everybody's a narcissist. And I think it's important to be clear that we're talking about like they're being clinically diagnosed. That's a very different thing from having a couple of narcissistic traits, right? Because I believe, isn't it true that a full narcissist will never change? There's nothing you can do. They're just a bad person. The best advice is stay away, right?
Yeah.
That's very different, to someone that's maybe got some narcissistic traits, right?
Right, exactly. So one of my best friends is Dr. Angela Smith, and she's one of the world's top experts on narcissism. And she tells me all the time, once diagnosed, I'm talking according to the DSM-5, diagnosed, you're a narcissist, that's not going to change. And the best you can do as a partner in that situation is identify, do you want to deal with that? And then if so, to manage. And she works with narcissists as clients where she helps them to manage their behavior. So it can be managed, but you're always going to be diagnosed as a narcissist. Now, that is different from the rest of us who we all have narcissistic traits. Yeah. A matter of fact, something that she told me that I find really interesting is that most highly successful entrepreneurs will test high on narcissism scales. Not to the point where they are considered diagnosed as a narcissist, but they're fairly close. Because you think about the characteristics that you need. It's like you're an entrepreneur. You have to believe something that nobody else will believe. You have to have a vision. You have to go after it with extreme confidence when no one else. So you could see where the traits are there. You could also see where society now is helping to elevate and even create narcissism. Why? Think about social media. Social media.
Give me more likes, right?
How can I get more likes? How can I get more engagement? What do I need to do? And so, yes, to your point, narcissism is something that is a term that is overused. OCD, term that's overused. Gaslight, term that's overused. And we must stop using these terms inappropriately because it does a disservice to the actual victims of true narcissism, true gaslighting.
I think that's so important for everybody to recognize. What would you say if someone's unsure, if they think they might just be with a successful entrepreneur or they might be with a diagnosed narcissist? What are some of the distinguishing differences?
Yeah. So if you want to know for sure, your partner needs to be tested. It is for sure, it needs to be tested. However, let's talk about some things that the dark tetrad likes to do. The first is that you will feel overindulged in the early part of your relationship it will feel beyond bliss. You'll get everything that you ever wanted. They'll say everything. You will literally say, this is too good to be true. Right? This is the beginning. The second part.
But again, that could happen with a lot of relationships because everybody's wearing a bit of a mask usually, right? So
everyone
again,
is.
That's still something that's like, maybe, could be.
Yes. And this is why I love this question. It's a brilliant question because it's not one thing happening. It's a succession of things. So that's the beginning of it. The next is isolation. Now, why would a narcissist or a psychopath or sadist or Machiavellian, why would they want to isolate you? Because you're easier to manipulate when you are isolated. So how does isolation take place? In a variety of ways. All right, let's move in together, but you're going to come move in with to my
where
place.
I live.
Where I live.
Yeah.
I know we live in different cities. Come with me. I know you spend every weekend with your family. I'm your new family.
Sure.
My family is your new family, right? You see, stop hanging out with those people. Spend more time with me. Whatever it may be, you begin to see isolation. Then the last step, control. Right? So now you're moved in. You know what? This weekend, you stay at the house. I'm going out with my friends. And you stay at the house. Right? So you see this overindulgence. It moves to isolation. And then it moves to control. If you feel those three things have happened, it's dangerous territory.
High chance that we're dealing with a proper narcissist.
Or someone who is a bad person. A bad person.
All right, that's the not so nice stuff that we need to be aware of. Let's talk about thriving relationships. Let's talk about, what would you say are some of the three or some of the main aspects of a successful long-term relationship?
I mean, you said the most important, personal satisfaction. Someone going in with high well-being. And you could kind of tell that almost in the way that I could tell it with my wife. Someone who doesn't need external validation. They're not looking for the public to tell them something is okay. That's such a great trait. So that's one.
It doesn't come easy for people, that, does it? I think what you referred to earlier about the way social media is, it's almost programming us to want judgment, want approval from other people. So I think, one of the things I'm really getting from this chat today is it all does stem from doing the inner work, doing the self-development work, and that being an ongoing process, right?
Yes.
Daily.
daily, but it's not. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated or hard.
Yeah.
So just to give an example is you talked about the scale that I have in the back of the book. So in the scale, this long-term relationship satisfaction scale, it is about helping to determine whether or not your partner is a strong partner for you. Now, as a result of doing that scale, I went off and I developed a whole project that I'm going to roll out. And this project allows me to provide assessments. And I've been testing different assessments. So one of the assessments we created was something similar to Carol Riff's 6 Dimensions. My wife and I take the assessment. My wife scores high on all of these areas with the exception of environmental mastery. Okay. So she's like, oh my God, what should I be doing? Like, do I need to move? Like, do I need like what? Yeah. And then we started to look at interventions. And you know what one simple intervention was? Clean up your room. Just feel like you have control over your space. It's organized. Yeah. That alone begins to put you on the path to environmental mastery. So you see how it like an intervention or getting on the path doesn't have to be super complicated. You don't have to sit down with a therapist, although it's great. Clean up your room.
We think like that, don't we? We always think in big, bold moves. Often in life, it's the small, simple, easy stuff to do.
The easy stuff. So that was an example. But you're asking me, okay, kind of like what are the green flags? Sure. So strong well-being is one. Yeah. Then I would say emotional fitness is incredibly important. And there's different ways to break down emotional fitness, but I look at it as you are emotionally aware and you are emotionally stable. And this is very important. And I include a study that I think doesn't get enough attention. And that is that when you look at marriage rates, when you look at divorce rates drop in half. So they go from like roughly 50% or roughly 40% to only 20%. If you were committed to your partner for roughly 2 years prior to you getting married.
Okay.
Now, why is that? When you unpack it, it's because within 2 years, we've gone through what? Ups and downs. We've gone through all the seasons of our life. Yeah. Maybe you've been let go from a job. Maybe, unfortunately, you've had a family member pass away. Yeah. And you can observe how your partner reacts emotionally. Does something terrible happen? It rocks you, it shakes you, and then they bounce back? That is emotionally stable. Or does something terrible happen and they never come back? That's being emotionally unstable. That's technically being neurotic, right? When you can't bounce back. And so that fits within a strong partner. You want a partner who's emotionally stable. So emotional fitness is another one. And if I were just to add a third one, and this is in chapter 7 of my book, is curiosity. You know, curiosity truly trumps confidence as sexy. We oftentimes, this is another one. Confidence is sexy. Confidence is sexy. Yeah. Confidence is cool. Curiosity is sexy. Curiosity is sexy. Because when you have a partner that wants to know everything about you, that's how you
and he's still curious 20 years later, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
That is cool. Like, that's what builds emotional intimacy. And they're curious about what's happening around them. And then they want to share that with you. So think, if you have a partner who's curious, emotionally fit, and high well-being, come on now.
I'm so ready now to get out there dating again. I'm so excited.
There you go. You got Matt. Yeah.
Paul, this has been brilliant. Honestly, thank you so much. Like, your book's brilliant, and the stuff that I've seen you doing online, I loved coming to your event, and this chat today has just given me so much. Obviously, there's Married at First Sight, there's the TV jobs that you do. What's kind of next for you? What's some of the exciting stuff you could share that's going on now?
Yeah, I feel like I'm working on my life's work right now.
Yeah.
So all the TV projects are cool. I love them. I love them all.
Yeah.
I love them all. But I'm working on a super exciting project with Stephen Bartlett's team called Flight Studio around my own show.
Wow.
And really delving deep on these topics and examining them from a scientific standpoint, but going around the world.
Okay.
going around the world.
So it's kind of like what we were covering
examine.
earlier, right? About seeing different cultures, different ways of living.
Absolutely. So you think about we were talking about having one partner, right? You were like, that's life, having one partner. Well, I also want to fly to Istanbul and sit down and talk to someone who says, no, it's about the family. And having your discussion and your opinion and having their discussion and their opinion to illuminate both.
Sure.
And not say one is right, one is wrong, but give an opportunity for everyone to see that there are multiple opinions to these topics. So yeah, that's the show. And I can't wait. I can't wait for it to launch.
It's just fascinating. Even just you touching on that subject today, immediately my mind's a little bit like, don't know how I feel right now. Because I feel so certain that is best for humanity, that we do find our person. And it's something that's still so deeply ingrained in what I want. I want that one person. I want to have children and, grow together and have that partnership. And then you saying that, I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Do I really? Is that really the best answer?
Right.
Maybe I'm wrong.
And what I love about the show is, and the show is called We Need to Talk. So it's like, we need to talk about, let's talk about partnership, right? And what I love about it is that you may have this opinion, but if you are open to hearing this other opinion, you can still say, you know what, I'm sticking with my opinion, but at least you've examined these other options, and that makes you more resolute and strong in your opinion. Yeah. And I think that's beautiful. That's beauty, because there's so much ignorance.
That's what I was thinking.
In the world.
Yeah. You've just from this conversation today, you've opened up some of my ignorance. I might now be open to that and listen. I might still come to the same resolution, the same opinion, but I'll be even stronger in that opinion, knowing I've explored the others.
Yes.
And that's the cool thing. That's what I'm interested in.
Yes.
I'm so excited. I can't wait. I love the book. Do you want to just tell people where they can get the book from, where they can follow you if they don't already follow you online and stuff?
Sure. You can get the book everywhere now.
Yeah,
you know what's interesting is the audio version is outselling the hard copy.
Well, that's where I listened to it. I listened to the whole book, and then I got a physical copy just to kind of, I don't know, things like Tetrad. I was like, I can't actually understand how to spell that. I need to read it. There's a difference in the actually seeing it and hearing it.
Yeah, that's interesting that you listened to it.
Yeah, I did first. Yeah.
So you can get the audio, all the Amazon, Waterstones, all those, and then I'm at Paul C Brunson on all the popular platforms.
Amazing, Paul. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's an honor.
And genuinely, thank you for the work you're doing. I think it's in this modern world of relationships, dating, and like you say, it feels like we're just at the beginning of a lot of it. And it can be so difficult and confusing to navigate. And I think having that voice, having that clarity, and as I say with this book, having a guide is what we all need. So thank you so much, Paul. Final question that I ask every guest to finish the podcast is, what is your personal definition of success?
I have to give a clinical definition. It is identifying goals, a goal or goals, and then actioning the steps towards that. So you don't have to have achieved it, but similar to well-being that we're talking about, is actioning the steps and then making a forward progression towards it.
Beautiful.
That is it. Can I say one thing?
Sure.
Too, is that I want to big you up.
Oh.
No, this is important.
Okay.
Your voice in particular is needed more than ever. What we're seeing right now is, can I ask also, Matt, how old are you?
32.
32.
Yeah.
You are precisely at the age where there's this large perception that the 32-year-old men, younger and slightly older, are just disappearing off the face of this planet. There's this thought that you don't care. There's this thought that, not you, but there's this thought that men don't care. There's this thought that men don't read. There's this thought that men are not emotional. I think that what you are doing is you are proving. You're not just talking about it, but you are proving through this podcast, through your actions, that no, we do care.
Yeah.
No, we are interested in these topics, and you are showing up. And we need more of you to show up. But I really applaud you for taking that leadership position and showing up. Your work is incredibly, incredibly important. So thank you.
Bless you, man.
For what you're doing.
I really, really appreciate that.
You got it.
And I'll pay you in a minute for it. No, thank you, Paul. That was great. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you.
you.
Thank you.